In this lesson, we'll practice inheritance once again. This time, we'll make an old light that flickers every other time you turn it on. Navigate to this URL to get started. Once you see this page, fork the project to get your own editable copy. To do this, click on the project name in the top left to get a dropdown. Click on the ellipses to get another dropdown. And finally, click on the fork. Then, I suggest placing your Skillshare and REPL.it windows side by side as shown here. We'll hop right in and subclass our original light class. Here's the format for defining a subclass. In your code, you should see a light class that we defined in the previous lesson. Scroll down to the very bottom of your file. Here we'll define an old light, which subclasses the original light class. We'll type in pass here for now. You'll now override the toggle method in the parent class, since our light needs to flicker every other time the light is turned on. We'll now define our constructor, which sets flicker to false. This means the default for all lights will be to not flicker starting off. Define the constructor with the self argument with sync equals to none. Recall that this default argument was in our original class's constructor. We'll then need to write on is equal to false, just like before. We'll write sync is equal to sync, and these two lines look redundant, and you're right, they are. This should be a red flag. We'll address this in a second. Finally, let's set flicker to false. That way the light is not flickering by default. You'll now override the toggle method in the parent class, since our light needs to flicker every other time the light is turned on. Here's the format for defining a new method. Right underneath our constructor, we'll now define a toggle method. Like before, we need to change the light from on to off or from off to on. So we'll write here self.on equals to not self.on. However, we then need to check for the synced light. So if self.sync is not none, and this should seem fishy, we have redundant code. This is a red flag. This code simply repeats the parent's toggle method. The solution is to call the parent method. To see how, we need to call the parent method. Here's how to call the parent method. We simply use the super instance as a substitute for our parent instance. So back in your code, we're going to actually delete these two lines and instead write super.toggle. Before we continue, we'll need to actually call the parent constructor from every other class's constructor. Here, we need to call the parent constructor, and the parent constructor actually takes in a sync argument. In the original light, we'll also call its parent constructor. Now we can finish the toggle method. We check if the light is turned on. If it is, toggle the light flickering or not. That way, every other time the light is flickering. So if the light is on, then we change whether or not it's flickering. This completes our old flickering light. Finally, let's use this old light. Go ahead and click the green arrow on the top to run your code. Then instantiate your old light. Light is equal to old light. Check if it's flickering or not. Light.flicker. Indeed, it's not flickering. Let's now turn on the light. And let's check if the light is now flickering. It should be. And it in fact is flickering. Let's turn the light off, then on again. And let's check again if the light is flickering. This time, it should not be. Indeed, it is not flickering. For a copy of these slides and the finished code for this lesson, make sure to check out the course website. This concludes our practice for the inheritance concept, using old flickering lights. In the next lesson, we'll talk about a mysterious error in object-oriented programming, why it happens, and how to fix it.